Good afternoon, English first additional language students. I'm back again. And on today's lesson, quickly, I'm going to go through visual literacy, focusing on cartoons, because I believe the last segment that I did visual literacy based only on advertisements. Right now, we are going to do a cartoon. What I normally tell my learners quickly is that when you write English file paper 1 grade 12, more especially grade 12, 30 marks already in your pocket. 10 marks from summary, 10 marks from cartoon, 10 marks from an advert. Why do I say that? Because all the points, all the information that you need to respond to the questions are actually in the question paper. So everything that you need to tackle these 3 questions is actually within the question paper itself. What you need to understand is the nuggets, if not steps, if not concepts that you need to understand prior unpacking a visual literacy. Now, this is called a visual literacy coming from the word vision. It means that you write what you see, all right? First and foremost, whenever you get a cartoon like the one in this question paper, you must study the storyline. Don't be lazy to read the storyline in totality, because some questions will prompt you to use information from the storyline as your answer. Know the relationship between characters. Is this mother and daughter? Is this a boss and an employee? It's important to understand the relationship between the characters that are portrayed in the visual literacy. Again, study the setting. Setting, it refers to where action is taking place. And small things will indicate to you, like the background of the frame, where maybe you see a couch or you see like a TV stand with a TV, you know that these people are in a sitting room. Maybe you see a fridge or you see a microwave and you see that the action is taking place in a kitchen. So all these small drawings will indicate to you the setting. And then you must differentiate between a speech bubble and a thought bubble. Now, for example, in this cartoon, we see by this pointed arrow that this is a speech bubble. It means these are the words of the character. But then when you have circles like this one in frame 2, it means that the character is no longer talking, but the character is thinking. And that is what you call a thought bubble. So in a cartoon, we have a speech bubble and a thought bubble. Again, most importantly, I keep referring so much to grade 12 because I believe what I'm going to give you will come in handy when it comes to tackling English paper 1. A cartoon may be there to entertain. A cartoon may be there to educate or to inform you. Now, a cartoon that is there to entertain you, the cartoonists normally use what we call humor. That's why sometimes an examiner will say to you, what makes this, or do you find this cartoon humorous? If the question comes in that form, what it's needed from you is for you to unpack the storyline and tell us exactly how was humor created. When you see the word humor, just think of the word joke. How was this joke created in this cartoon? Sometimes a joke can depend on a double meaning. What do you mean by double meaning? It means one word that is interpreted differently. Quickly, I'm just going to make an example. There was this other cartoon, this boy said, I cannot wait, my parents want to give me further education. The other one thought about further education as in like education after grade 12 where you go to tertiary. That is further education. The other one thought about further education as a form of a distance because he said, I don't want to go to a boarding school. Remember the word further, boarding schools are normally far away from home. So it was one phrase interpreted differently by 2 characters that the humor was centered around rather the double explanation of one concept. And that's normally what you call ambiguity. So in grade 12, you must be in a position to determine whether this cartoon, was it informative? Was it there to pass out a joke? If yes, it was there to pass out a joke. How was humor created? All right, I will delve into that at a later stage, all right? Okay, now I want us to look at this advert. At this cartoon. Don't be lazy to read all these things that are within your question paper. They are there for a purpose. For an example, you have the word note. It means the examiner is trying to guide what's happening here. He says, in this cartoon, the man's name is John and his cat's name is Garfield. So already we know who's who in this cartoon. We have John, and then we have the cat name as Garfield. And then remember that a cartoon can be divided into frames. Others call them strips, still fine. We have frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. However, we don't have a background in terms of a setting because there's nothing at the background that indicates to us in actual fact where action is taking place. So we don't know the setting of the cartoon. Right? Now let us get into the cartoon itself. After establishing the relationship between characters, what is that you need to do now? You study the storyline. All right? It is important. Once you understand the storyline, it will be a smooth sailing boat for you to answer the questions. In the first frame, John is saying, a tree fell on my car with an exclamation mark. There's a reason for that. In frame number 2, he's saying, what should I do? And then again on frame number 2, we have a thought bubble where Garfield is saying, John, John, here's what you do. And then frame 3, he's saying that, no, he's not saying, he's thinking, because this is a thought bubble, not a speech bubble. When you see circles like that, not a pointy edge, it's not a speech bubble, but a thought bubble. He say that, walk to the store to buy my food. And then my learners will say, ma'am, how do I answer questions based on visual literacy? Let me give you a tip. Everything that you answer in visual literacy cartoon, it must be accompanied by evidence. And where is your evidence? Your evidence is in the facial expression of the character. Your evidence is in the body language of the character. Your evidence is in the words of the character. However, do not answer and say because of facial expression. Do not answer and say because of body language. You are too ambiguous. It's a generic answer. Use adjectives. Remember, adjectives are describing words. Use adjectives to say, oh, okay, I can see that the mouth is wide open to show that the character is shouting. I can see that the eyes are wide open to show that the character is surprised. I can see that the character has folded her arms to show that she's furious. I can see that there are lines maybe above the character's head to show that she's angry or furious. Or I can see that the character has frowned her forehead to show that he is angry or furious. These are just few examples, all right? So you cannot answer and say body language. You cannot answer and say facial expression. You need to tell us exactly which body parts you are referring to in a character. And then the words of the character must match the facial expression of the character. You cannot say to me that the character is angry facially, but then whereas the words say something differently, all right? Now I'm going to simplify it for you when I do this cartoon. Now, before you can even go to the questions, I've studied the storyline. In the first frame, John said a tree fell on his car. Now I'm going to study the body language. In the first frame, his mouth is wide open, his eyes are wide open, his hands are stretched out, okay? Which makes it difficult for us to believe him because he's actually smiling. What makes me say that John is smiling? I have evidence. What is my evidence? His mouth is wide open to show that he's happy or he's smiling. His eyes are also wide open. And then in the second frame again, the mouth is still wide open, the eyes are still wide open, and he's asking Garfield, what is that can I do? Because a tree just fell on my car. And the second frame again, Garfield is saying, he's thinking, sorry, not saying, remember thought bubble, it means the character is doing what? Thinking, not talking. He says, John, here's what you do. And then we have this. This is what you call ellipses. The 3 dots there or 4 dots or full stops, we call them ellipses. In English, whenever you come across an ellipsis, you know that the idea is incomplete or the sentence itself is incomplete. And in frame 3 now, Garfield is saying to John, come on, walk to the store to buy me food. Now, whenever you see words of the character being written in capital letters with an exclamation mark, in most cases in a cartoon is to indicate that the character is saying those words louder or to indicate that in actual fact the character is shouting. Okay, whenever you come across a cartoon and then you see words that are bolded, it means they are darker with a larger font size, is to emphasize what the character is saying. But if that again is accompanied by an exclamation mark, just know that it is to indicate that the character is saying the words louder or the character is shouting. All right, I think I've done justice to it. Now let us go to the question. You will see that it will be easier for us to come up with the responses because already we've done justice in as far as unpacking the cartoon. Now the first question, says refer to frame 1. Grade 12 learners, English FAL learners, do not be lazy to read the question in totality. Practice question interpretation. The examiner is guiding you. He's saying you must refer to frame 1. That means we have to deduce, if not extract, all our responses from frame 1. So 4.1.1 and 4.1.2, all our answers are going to be deduced from frame 1. Now, the first question says, describe Garfield's body language. I will tell you, this is the last year's question paper. Most of our learners did not do well in this section. Why? Instead of describing Garfield's body language, they described John's body language. And that shows a skill of or having poor question interpretation skill, which you need to guard against, all right? So in frame 1, we are looking at Garfield. The examiner is saying to us, we must now describe his body language. Good people, there's no need for you to scratch your head. The answer is plain and simple. You write what you see. What is that you see? Garfield is standing still, or Garfield is standing upright, because there's no movement there, all right? There are no gestures. Garfield, the accurate answer, Garfield is standing still or he's standing upright. That's it. Ne? Remember, the question is not talking about John, but it's talking about Garfield, who's the cat, all right? In frame 4, question 4.1.2, why would the reader not necessarily believe John? Where are we? We are in frame 1 again, always question interpretation. Now, when I go to frame 1, if you were listening to me when I started to unpack the cartoon for you, you would also hear that already I gave out answers. And if you can employ these methods, you'll find yourself smiling in an examination, because you know that once you read the storyline, you understood what the relationship is between the characters there. Are they shouting? Are they happy? It will be easy enough for you to tackle the questions. Now, 4.1.2, why would the reader not necessarily believe John? That is simple. Remember, we are looking for evidence. We write what we see. Evidence. Why would I not believe John? Number 1, John is smiling, but you don't end there. All right? You don't just say John is smiling, then full stop. We want evidence. What makes you say that John is smiling? His mouth is wide open to show that he's smiling. Also, his eyes are wide open and his hands are stretched out. This shows a happy mood, which makes it difficult for us to really, really believe that a tree fell on his car. You see, every time you give us what? Evidence. And where are you going to get your evidence? Body language, facial expression. However, you don't answer by saying body language. You explain explicitly the parts of body that you are referring to in order to come up with the correct answers. Let us move along. Let us move along. We are now in question 4.2. Again, the examiner is guiding you. He's saying to us, refer to frame 2. So that means that for this question, we are going to refer to frame 2. You see why I repeat this over and over again? Sometimes you fail because of silly mistake, unnecessarily so, by failing to interpret questions accordingly. In English, if you can master the skill of interpreting questions accordingly, it will also assist you in answering other content subject, because you are going to answer them in English, all right? Once you can master that in this section, more especially paper 1, best believe you'll have enough vocabulary and enough understanding to answer other content subject, because they are being taught and being assessed in English. Okay, let us move forward. Now in frame 2, they say, why does the cartoon use ellipses? Again, when I was doing when I unpacked the cartoon for you, yeah, I gave out the answer. Ellipses are used to indicate that, one, you may say the idea is incomplete or the sentence is incomplete, or you can say Garfield is not done. In this time, we're not going to say Garfield is not done talking, but we'll say Garfield is not done what? Thinking, because this is a thought bubble, not a speech bubble. All right. I hope now you have get up and you really understand how to answer questions based on visual literacy cartoons. Now let us move now to 4.3. They say you must now refer to frame 3. You see, we started with frame 1. The examiner now is landing us in frame 3. Let us check the question. The question says, why is the word walk written in bold? Remember what I said? Words are written in bold or are bolded with capital letters to indicate that the character is saying the words loud, or the character is shouting, or the character is emphasizing whatever he or she is saying. But here's the catch in this cartoon. This is not a speech bubble. So you cannot say to me that the character is shouting, all right? It's not a speech bubble, but a thought bubble. So it means because Garfield is not talking, Garfield is thinking. So that means Garfield is, the word walk is bolded to emphasize that even though John is saying that a tree fell on his car, meaning that he doesn't maybe have a mode of transport to go and buy Garfield's food, we have a solution. A solution is that he can still do what? Walk to the store to get Garfield food. Now you get it. So the perfect answer will be the word is bolded because Garfield is emphasizing. You don't just say Garfield is emphasizing, then you stop it there. No, don't be lazy. You must round up your answers. You must round up your answers, especially when you are in grade 12. You're not just going to say to emphasize. Tell us what is that is being emphasized in this cartoon. So what is being emphasized here? It is Garfield is emphasizing that John should go to this store. How? By walking. All right? Perfect. Let us move along. Choose the correct answer to complete the following sentence. We are still in frame 3. All right? Garfield's tone in this frame is. I'm going to pause a bit here and explain something that is so crucial. In actual fact, it pains me when learners who are in grade 12 cannot determine a tone. It pains me, it troubles me. It's your duty to know about a tone. How do we determine a tone? A tone is determined by the choice of words as well as what is happening in the storyline, all right? Now, the question is, out of the 4 options that we have, is he friendly? Is he gentle? Is he sarcastic? Is he angry? I'm gonna get right into it. The correct answer will be that he is sarcastic. And I'm going to explain what is sarcasm because that concept is so important. The words sarcastic and sarcasm, they're actually very closely related with irony. And I want to explain them to you, especially grade 12s. You're still going to apply them again when you get to your literature. Because in literature, that's where you get asked about sarcasm or irony, right? In paper 2. So I'm actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. Right, good people. Irony, it's when you say something, but internally you mean the opposite, all right? Sarcasm, you still use irony, but with the intention to mock somebody or the intention to hurt somebody, all right? Irony, you say something, but what is happening in reality is the opposite. Sarcasm or sarcastic, it's when you do the same thing as irony, but with the intention to hurt somebody. So when you are being sarcastic, in actual fact, you are being ironic, but just with the intention to do what? To hurt somebody, or you can say to mock somebody. Now, why do we say that Garfield is being sarcastic here? Remember, John is saying that a tree fell on his car. So if perhaps he was maybe saying the truth, in a normal circumstances, you would expect somebody to sympathize with him, to say, oh, what happened? Oh, I'm sorry for your car. But then Garfield is like, dude, you can just go to the store and get me food. So that's why we're saying that his tone there, it is sarcastic. You know, he's mocking, if not scolding, John, all right? And maybe in my next segment, when I do poetry, I'll get deeper into sarcasm and irony. All right, but I hope I've done justice to my brief explanation. Now, 4.3.3, this question, how does John's facial expression in frame 3 changes in comparison to frame 1 and 2? This is what makes me very angry. When our learners know the correct answer, but they are lazy to write it in totality, or because they have not done justice to question interpretation. The question says, facial expression in frame 3 in comparison from frame 1 and 2. In your answer, I'm expecting you to tell me this is how John is in frame 1 and 2 compared to how John is in frame 3. I must be able to notice or to spot the difference in the frames. Now let us go back to the cartoon, because remember, we work with evidence. If you don't have evidence, you don't have an answer in visual literacy. In frame 1, Garfield's mouth is wide open. Again, in frame 2, his mouth is also wide open. His eyes are all wide open in frame 1 and 2. But in frame 3, his eyes are lowered down. As you can see, only they're open partially. It means they are lowered down. His lips are tightly closed. The mouth is no longer wide open. And then another phrase that you can use, if not, it's not a phrase, another word that you can use, you can say, his lips are pursed. The word P-U-R-S-E-D. His lips are pursed. It means that they are tightly closed. In frame 1 and 2, his mouth is wide open. His eyes are wide open. Garfield seems happy. All right. But in frame 3, his eyes are lowered down and his lips are pursed to show that he's disappointed. Why do I say that he's disappointed or annoyed? It is because Garfield came up with a solution to say, even though a tree fell on your car, there's still another option. Remember, you can still what? You can still walk to the store to get me food. Please, question interpretation is important. Now, the last question. Grade 12s, please learn to do justice in the last questions, higher order questions, where the examiner is looking for your own opinion with regard to whatever is happening in the cartoon. They will say, do you? The minute you hear the question saying, do you, we are seeking your own opinion. But then the key word in this question always is that is to substantiate. When you substantiate your answer, I'm not saying that you should write an essay, but it must be a well-rounded answer. Okay, you can't just say, oh yes, because then full stop. You are in grade 12. You must learn the skill, sharpen the skill to answer higher order questions, all right? There's no need to run helters and skelters in this question. You are going to use now the storyline to answer open-ended questions in cartoon. For example, if a question might be, do you find this cartoon humorous? You say yes or you say no. Then the examiner will say substantiate. I would say, yes, I find it humorous because John thought Garfield would believe him by saying that a tree fell on his car, only to find that Garfield came up with a solution to say you can still walk to the store. Where did I get all these things that I'm saying? Where did I get my answer? From the cartoon. Hence, I say you write what you see. So you have enough information at your disposal. There's no way that you can fail this section. All right. Now, the question is, do you think Garfield's behavior is acceptable in this cartoon? Remember, these are open-ended questions. You are not forced to say yes, you are not forced to say no. The only trick is that are you in a position to substantiate, to beef up your answer? And please, I would say, to be on the safer side, always say yes and then use the storyline as your response. Another option for the answer, it can be yes. Garfield's behavior, it is acceptable, yes. Then the question is why? I use the storyline. Listen to this response. In frame 1 and 2, John's eyes are wide open and his mouth is wide open, indicating that he's smiling. Chances are he is lying that a tree did not fall on his car. So therefore, Garfield is still correct to demand food, to say he can still go and get him food by walking. Where did I get all this information? From the cartoon itself. Or alternatively, you can say, no, Garfield does not sympathize with John. We believe John doesn't sympathize with John, and John's car got into maybe a horrible accident. So he's supposed to sympathize, not demand food. You get it? So good people, if I'm just quickly going to round it off for you, I would say, know your storyline, please. Know your characters. Know the words. Remember, words are bolded to show that the character is shouting, if not, is emphasizing what they are saying. But don't answer by just saying they are emphasizing. You must be in a position to tell us what is being emphasized. All right? A cartoon that is humorous, that is there to tell us a joke. In grade 12, you must be in a position to indicate to us where does the joke lie. Does the joke lie, for an example, in here, the joke lies in being sarcastic. Sarcasm was used to create humor. Sometimes irony can be used to create humor. Sometimes a pun can be used to create humor. All right. So in grade 12, ensure that you know how humor is created in a cartoon. We need evidence every time. And where are you going to get your evidence? Facial expression of the character as well as body language. But don't forget, don't ever say facial expression, don't ever say body language. Those are two generic answers. Those are too ambiguous, all right? Guide the examiner. What are you going to use everything that you see in a cartoon? Remember that a cartoon can be there to entertain, can be there to inform, or pass out an important message. I hope this was a fruitful lesson to all of you. We shall meet shortly. Continue to learn, continue to hit the ground whilst running. We shall conquer.